Welcome to our Sustainable House Day 2020 extension session, brought to you by Renew and sponsored by the Department of Industry, Science, Energy and Resources, the department that manages your home and Design For Place and administers the nationwide House Energy Rating Scheme, or NatHERS. My name's Anna Cumming and I will be your MC for tonight. This is our fifth webinar after our all-day event on Sunday, the 20th of September. We hope some of you had a chance to attend. This session will focus on Design For Place, the free energy-efficient house plans from your home, the Australian Government's Guide to Environmentally Sustainable Homes. Sustainable House Day, which has run for 20 years now, is a national event organised by Renew that aims to inspire people to live more sustainably through sharing peer-to-peer knowledge and experiences in sustainable housing. On behalf of Sustainable House Day and Renew, I would like to acknowledge that the event is taking place on the traditional lands of many Aboriginal and/or Torres Strait Islander people. I am speaking on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people of the Kulin Nation. We acknowledge them as the traditional owners of the land and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. We would like to extend that respect to all Aboriginal and/or Torres Strait Islander people, including those we have with us on the panel or in the audience today. We thank them for their continuing connection to land, waters and community, which has existed for many thousands of years as the oldest living culture on Earth. We acknowledge the pivotal role that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people continue to play in caring for country across Australia. Sovereignty on these lands has never been ceded and treaties are yet to be negotiated. This always was and always will be Aboriginal land. We also recognise that this being a national event, we are each tuning in from different parts of the country and possibly even overseas. We invite you to share what traditional country you're watching from this evening in the chat. As tonight's MC, I'll be facilitating the discussion using your questions. To ask a question, please use Zoom's Q&A function, which you can find at the bottom of your Zoom window in your toolbar. If you'd like to react to something you see today or share your own experiences, feel free to use Zoom's chat function by clicking the chat button at the bottom of your Zoom window in your toolbar. If you'd like everyone watching to see your chat, select all panellists and attendees in the drop-down box above the text field. And tonight we have live closed captioning for this event. Just click on the button in the upper left corner of your Zoom window that says Live on Custom Live Streaming Service and select View Stream in Custom Live Streaming Service to open a browser window with live captions. This event would not be possible without the support of our members and sponsors, who you can find on our website. So now let's get started. To introduce myself properly, I'm Anna. I'm the editor of Sanctuary, Modern Green Homes magazine, published by Renew, the organiser of Sustainable House Day. I have a long-standing interest in sustainable, energy-efficient and comfortable homes that tread lightly on the earth, and I really love being part of the mission to inspire and educate people about the design strategies, materials and systems available to achieve them. Renew has been involved with your home since its inception, and it's been great to see the addition of the Design For Place suite of free house plans to the guide. Architect designed and tailored to suit different climates across Australia, the plans showcase energy efficiency and passive solar design principles and can be customised to suit different needs, block orientations and local requirements. They are also designed to be cost-effective to build. For the current issue of Sanctuary magazine, I had the opportunity to research and write an article on one of the first homes to be built using the Design For Place plans in Inverloch in Victoria, and I'm looking forward to chatting with the homeowner Richard later in this session. So, to introduce our panellists for tonight. Firstly, we have Felicity Woodhams. Hi Felicity. An assistant manager in the Your Home and NatHERS operations team at the Department of Industry, Science, Energy and Resources. Felicity's background is in environmental science, holding both undergraduate and master's qualifications in this field. She's worked in numerous government roles in program delivery, research and communications, and in international organisations in Thailand and Sri Lanka. Due to a growing interest in sustainable building design, Felicity sought out a professional role in this area in 2015. She spent 3 years working on NatHERS, the nationwide House Energy Rating Scheme, bit of a tongue twister, and for the past 18 months has been leading a small team delivering the new Design For Place house plans and a comprehensive update of the Your Home Guide to Sustainable Building. Tonight, Felicity will be giving a short presentation on the Design For Place initiative and the new designs that have just been added. Next up is architect Ben Walker. Hi Ben, who will be talking about designing the Design For Place plans and about their key features. Ben has bachelor degrees in architecture and landscape architecture from the University of Canberra. Since graduating, he's worked in numerous private and public positions in Canberra and Melbourne, including an associate role at Townsend Associates Architects from 2006 to 2012. He then established his own practice, Ben Walker Architects. Ben's worked on a diverse range of architectural, urban design and planning projects over the past 15 years. He received the Australian Institute of Architects ACT Chapter Emerging Architect Prize in 2011, and his projects have also won a number of Institute awards and commendations. He also continues his relationship with the University of Canberra and has lectured and tutored in the architecture stream for several years. And as I mentioned before, we also have Richard joining us tonight. Hi, Richard. Richard and his wife discovered the Design for Place home plans while looking for ways to build an energy-efficient, high-performing house on a moderate budget. Their resulting home, called Harmony House, makes use of passive solar design elements such as internal thermal mass, cross-flow ventilation, and window placement to create a bright and nurturing living environment. The family are overjoyed with the result and enjoy comfortably stable internal temperatures year-round. Welcome to you all, and thank you for being here. I'll hand over to Felicity now for our first presentation.
Thank you, Anna. I'm just pulling up my slides. Okay, as I said, thanks, Anna, and welcome everyone. It's wonderful to be here to speak with you this evening. I too would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we each meet today and pay my respects to their elders past and present. This evening, I'm going to provide you with some insight into the Design for Place initiative and what it strives to achieve. I will provide a short overview of the original release, take you through some of the information on the latest release, and also give you some tips on how to use the new online content. Design for Place, as Anna mentioned, is an initiative of Your Home, Australia's guide to environmentally sustainable homes, which my team maintains. The original idea behind Design for Place was to give Australians access to good, energy-efficient house designs at their fingertips and to demonstrate the solar passive design principles that are explained in Your Home and the ratings modelled in the nationwide house energy rating scheme. They are an innovative approach to improving the energy efficiency of housing, as they show the fundamental principles and benefits of designing for climate, orientation, and livability. The plans do this by featuring thermal mass to even out internal temperatures, careful placement and sizing of windows to keep the homes warm in winter and cool in summer, incorporating high levels of internal natural ventilation, and creating flexible functional spaces. The designs are attractive in terms of construction and running costs, while still promoting comfort, livability, and good aesthetics. The house designs can be easily adapted to a wide range of construction materials and have been packaged to be accessible and used by people across Australia. The house plans and information that comes with them can empower homeowners to make informed decisions and also get involved in the design process. And finally, Design for Place provides a unique opportunity for the public to have access to free architecturally designed homes, which may appear out of reach of the average new home budget. The Design for Place initiative commenced in 2015 with the release of a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home design. The design came with NatHERS energy ratings of 7 stars or more in 9 different climate zones across Australia, as well as climate appropriate specification, construction and materials, elevations, and a number of select variations, including different roof options and an example of a 2-bedroom and a courtyard option as well. The plans were provided free online for people to use and adapt. This release received a lot of praise in 2015 and has since then received lots of hits on the Your Home website, with thousands of viewers having a look per month. It was also picked up by Better Homes and Gardens and Domain and was consistently popular and remains so to this day. In the latest content release, we have renamed this original design the Banksia. And this evening, it's wonderful to have Richard with us to talk to us about his experience of taking this design and building it and modifying it to suit his family and their needs. After the success of the original release, it took a few years, but we were determined to expand on the designs, and this brings us to today. Those principles that I explained earlier have been retained. However, this time around, we scoped the project slightly differently. We wanted to provide examples of how to build energy-efficient homes in more complex but increasingly common building scenarios. With the trend towards smaller blocks in many new housing developments, perfect solar access is not always achievable. Often people need to choose to build something smaller, have limited outdoor space, or go up and build on 2 levels. So this set the scene for a 2-bedroom townhouse option named the Acacia and the 4-bedroom 2-level option now named the Tilapia. You will hear a lot more about the specific designs shortly from the architect Ben Walker, but another important change we made this time around is that Ben worked very closely with an accredited NatHERS assessor right from the start during the design and the specification process, and they both spent time learning how these designs reacted in the 9 different climate zones which were chosen for this project and made adjustments to them accordingly. Another change for this project is that we asked Ben to make climate-specific design changes to each of the plans as well. For those of you that have taken a look at the technical drawings for the Acacia and the Tilapia in different climate zones provided on the website, you will see that there are visible design changes. Some are small, like the depth of an eave, and some are larger, like switching the living areas from the ground floor to the upper floor, or incorporating a breezeway. These adjustments Ben honed with the NatHERS assessor to get the balance just right for each location. It demonstrated how a NatHERS accredited assessor can add value to the design process before the floor plans are finalised and there isn't as much room to move. With the 2 new designs added to the suite of plans, we now have many climate-specific variations in both design and specifications, and this presented a challenge for how we were to display the content easily online for people to use. Those of you that are familiar with the original Design for Place content on your home will have seen a major shift in how we now display this information. We did user testing to find out what people liked about the original release and what people wanted to see, and this informed the presentation of new products. People wanted to be able to quickly find a clear outline for their specific design, climate and specifications, and print out the content easily and be able to take it to a builder or a designer to discuss further. So now, instead of the web pages, there were about 5 web pages of content previously, we've now switched to providing our content mainly in design packs with helpful background information also included in these packs, especially the design options file. So you can see in this infographic how we like people to engage in the content. So basically, first of all, you would choose which design you're most interested in. Then you would select a location and download the design pack. The design pack consists of 2 different files, the design options file, which also has all of that background information that I mentioned, as well as the technical drawings. And these, as I said, can be printed out and taken to discuss with a builder or architect or a building designer. We recognise that many people who want to build Design for Place may not be located in one of the 9 climate zones with which we've presented the content. But in this case, you should choose the climate zone which is most like or similar to the one in which you're looking to build in. So there are currently 69 NatHERS climate zones, and you can find out which one you're in by following this link, which is available on the NatHERS website, but I'll just ask Eliza to add that to the chat as well so everyone can see it. And just to let you know, you'll need to also open it in Google Chrome. But it allows you to put in your postcode and then it'll tell you which climate zone you're located in. So if you choose to pick up and build potentially one of these designs, you'll also, as I said, need to get it rated in your specific NatHERS climate zone. So once you've chosen your location, you can scroll down and download the design pack. And as I said, this consists of the design option file and the technical drawing file. So this is just the front cover of the different design option files there. And I'll just open one of them briefly and show you a particularly important page, if I can. And actually, I've lost it. We'll leave that there. But on page 5, there is a table which steps out the different ratings that you can achieve with this particular design. So, for example, the one that I would have shown you, and feel free to bring it up yourself, is the Acacia home in Canberra. And it shows you that you can achieve the 6.2, 7.2 or 8.1 star ratings. And the differences between these are shown in the table in terms of what the construction types are that would go in to achieve those ratings. So from memory, the differences were in the slab, the glazing, and also the depth of the eave. So it helps the user decide, based on their location and their construction budget, and also their target energy rating, what they want to put into their particular build. So I'd encourage you all to take a look at what the plan that interests you, but also to have a look at that plan in different locations so you can see the depth of information that's provided in these design packs. It's also important to note that the scale of energy ratings in NatHERS is not equal between each star. So for example, an 8-star home in Canberra is predicted to require 53% less energy for heating and cooling than a 6-star home. So that's just how the NatHERS star bands work, and it's an interesting thing to note and good background information as well. But you can find out more about that on the NatHERS website. So moving on, this is just some information from one of the technical drawing files, and I'm sure Ben is going to provide you with much more information on this. But in summary, it includes floor, site, roof and setup plans for the designs, elevations and sections, and as well as window and door details. So while these are quite detailed, you will still need to get your wherever you're building this particular design drafted for your construction and for your use in your location. So I'd encourage you all to get onto the website and have an explore of the 3 designs we have available. We're aware that while not everyone is going to be in a position to build one of these houses, they can provide inspiration and ideas that can be adopted for other home projects or renovations. They demonstrate the principles of your home and may be a starting point for many people to plan their own home. We are completely happy if someone starts with Design for Place and builds it as is, modifies it a little bit, or ends up somewhere completely different that better suits their needs. But overall, we are hoping that the information can assist people to create homes that are more comfortable and energy efficient. And finally, if you do choose to build one of the homes and you'd like to share your experience with us, you can contact me and my team at yourhome@industry.gov.au. But I'm sure you're all really eager to hear from Ben and Richard. And so I will finish there and hand back to Anna. Thank you.
Thank you, Felicity. I'll just get you to stop sharing your screen so that we can, thank you. Thank you very much for that really interesting overview. Especially, it's great to hear about the new designs that are now online and the redesign of the website. It looks terrific. So I'll hand over to Ben now to talk in more detail about the designs themselves. Take it away, Ben.
Thank you very much, Anna. And I'd just like to start by also acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we're talking and meeting today, and pay my respects to elders past and present. I've got a presentation as well that I will share in a minute, but very quickly I'd just like to say that this, as an architect, it's been a wonderful opportunity to be involved in a project that is slightly different to the day-to-day activities that we run here in the office, and also really wonderful to be involved with a dedicated and passionate staff at the Department of Industry, Energy, Environment, and to Felicity and the team. Thank you for the opportunity to be involved. It's been a wonderful opportunity for us. So if I move over now to the presentation, and I will share my screen. Okay, so what I wanted to do is reiterate some of the, I guess, the broad principles and the strategies and process that we went through in the project, but also to give people, I guess, a sense as an architect working in this process. I had a number of different agendas that were espoused that needed to be considered, and I wanted to give those opinions as well. And so, broadly speaking, I was going to talk about what is Design for Place as an architect's perspective. So Felicity's given a really good sort of background overview of what the project is and some detail about some of the processes we undertook. I also wanted to talk about the design principles in a little more detail. I'll go quickly back through the design outcomes, so I'll actually show you some of the ways that some of these principles have fed into the design themselves. I'll briefly talk about the energy rating process, and as Felicity said, we worked with a wonderful energy assessor during the process, and then we can talk about some questions and answers towards the end after Richard's had an opportunity to show us his beautiful home. Okay, so I guess from an architect's perspective, if I wanted to list the sort of main achievements or objectives of the project, it's to provide an opportunity for people to better equip themselves with information they can use to create a home that is considerate of sustainability and good design and principles. So it's not necessarily just about feeding people a set of drawings and associated text documents. It's actually giving you some background information that can be used in a variety of different ways. It provides information that demonstrates how different climate zones need different design and construction techniques to respond to specific conditions. And again, putting these things into visual format, as in drawings, gives people the opportunity to actually understand what we're talking about when we're talking about change for different climatic conditions. The drawing packages provide a visual reference that are designed to allow for more constructive conversations with practitioners within the building industry. So it's not just a package of text documents. So you can actually talk to a builder with a floor plan rather than a set of Word documents that they may not be, as happy to discuss with a potential client. The designs look to utilise common construction approaches so that the houses are broadly familiar with most building practitioners. So again, utilising drawings and images rather than just lots of notes. The designs and drawing packages are a great way to start the front end of the design process and can be supplemented with engineering and specification requirements specific to local area requirements later on. So as Felicity mentioned, whilst you may choose to use the drawings and build pretty much exactly as we have currently specified, you can also use them as the front end basis for discussions with others and change them to suit your specific requirements, your specific locale, construction requirements that might be appropriate to your specific site. And I've said at the end there, although it's possible to build using colour schemes, I should say, other sort of material and textures, etc., shown in the drawing packages, the intention of the project is that individual users can refine selections to suit their personal tastes whilst retaining the good design outcomes. So the bones of the projects, the sustainability objectives are within those drawings. You can change other things and still retain those good outcomes. So the design principles have been covered a bit by Felicity. Just very quickly though, from my point of view, the really important ones were to provide practical livable living spaces through considered planning and layout, connection to outdoors and consideration of privacy and circulation. So things that should be typical of any any design process. Provide designs that focus on passive regulation of interior temperatures, but with the knowledge that many users will expect to use some form of mechanical heating and cooling. So that's an important consideration for this project, is that whilst we're working hard to achieve a passive, that is a non-mechanical heating and cooling application for their houses, we understand that that many people will still expect to have some level of heating and cooling mechanically, and so we've considered that when we've set up things like insulation specifications, window specifications, etc. And there are a number of other design ideas and objectives there that people can come back and look at later on. I won't go through them all, we'll run out of time, but they align very much with what Felicity was talking about earlier. Okay, design outcomes. So one of the newest designs that we've done as part of stage 2 is the Tilapia house, which is a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom house with 2 living areas, and it sits at about 182 square metres, excluding the garage. And these are just some images of one of the sort of colour schemes that we've looked at utilising. In terms of talking about the principles that are driving this thing, this first image here shows that the main house volume runs from east to west, and that maximises the northern exposure and preserves north-facing garden and backyard. So to be honest, you'd be in a really good position if you had a block of land that had this orientation. We acknowledge that not every block of land will have this orientation, but we had to choose one in this instance that we felt we wanted to work with, which is why I've chosen that orientation. We've pulled the upper floor back from the southern boundary and preserved an area of open space so that there's respect for the neighbour to the south. They still have an opportunity for sunlight as well. The fenestration on the northern building facade provides good opportunities for solar access during winter, important for many climate zones in Australia, obviously not as much in tropical and hot areas, but certainly for many areas of Australia. Eaves, overhangs, sun hoods and sliding screens are used to provide shade to windows where required in summer. So we've been very conscious of understanding the depth of eaves and other things to achieve good shade. We've tried to articulate the building using some piers, some brick piers and other construction methods that actually give a sense of visual interest to these houses. So we've, in addition to the sustainability imperatives and objectives, we've also tried to be conscious of the proportions and the scale of these buildings as well. And then we've looked to use a range of materials that again give a reduction in the sense of bulk and scale so that they're kind to the neighbourhood and the streetscape, and also utilise materials that are commonly used throughout Australia in many different places. The floor plans you can download, but broadly speaking, if there's a garage at the entry, near the entry, there's an entry spine that runs through the middle of the house. The kitchen, living and dining space faces north and is situated at the back of the house. There's a second living room, so we understand that many people are looking to have some sort of second living room that gives an opportunity for separation of families and privacy from time to time. And then bedrooms are contained upstairs facing north as well. There are a number of different colour schemes that you'll be able to see if you log on to the website. One of the things that we did as part of this project was to do some variations to the designs that were climate specific, and this variation was for a tropical or for a more humid location. And so we varied the design to do a number of things. One was a swap of the living zones, which we've brought from the ground floor to the upper floor, and we've taken the bedrooms down to the ground floor. And that gives the nighttime sleeping spaces an opportunity to be closer to the ground floor, where they can take advantage of some isolated thermal mass in the terms of in types of concrete slabs in some internal brickwork. So that sort of passive cool is on the ground floor, and during nighttime sleeping, there's an opportunity to take advantage of that. There's also external shaded areas both at the ground floor and through a large veranda. So there's a large upper floor veranda that would be, I guess, fairly traditional and typical of some of the houses in Queensland and other warmer parts of Australia. That gives opportunities for cross ventilation and stuff as well, running through that, running off that veranda. we've introduced a breezeway. So there's a breezeway that actually runs between a garage and the ground floor that could have a pond or some water, so that you get some natural cooling across the top of that water. And we've set up the design so that louvers and other operable windows at the ground floor can actually take advantage of that cooled water and suck it into the house to provide passive cooling. Again, we've thought about shading and the capacity to provide shading where you need it, with large overhangs, and roof eaves, etc., are set up to both take it, respond to shade and also rain. Material choice allows for isolated internal thermal mass, and you can read about some of those things on the website. And you can also have a look at the floor plans, which I won't go through in detail. As I said, the major change here is that the living areas are upstairs. The Acacia House, which is a small little courtyard house. Now, this one is set up as 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a couple of living areas, and is only 123 square metres plus a carport. This is a weatherboard clad option, but there are other options on the website that you can see. The principles about this one is where you have what is considered sometimes a bit of a difficulty, where north is actually facing the street. So the house is set back from the street so that you create a north-facing front yard to take advantage of sunlight. We've also introduced 2 little cutouts or courtyards, and those little courtyards allow for the opportunity to have more north-facing windows towards the back of the house. So that's a way that we can have a number of different north-facing rooms within a block setup that would otherwise potentially constrain that opportunity. Overhangs and eaves, etc., are set up in a way that there's good shade cover. And on the website, you'll see that the technical details for different climate zones do specify different lengths of eaves and different lengths of overhang to control shade at different times of years. Very simple pitched roof, and there's some slight differences between the subtropical and tropical designs of this setup and the standard model. And structure is very simple. As Felicity mentioned, this can actually be, this is a townhouse that has 1 attached wall, so you could actually do 2 of these with a party wall that runs through the middle and get very similar energy rating outcomes. So it's very much looking at a more compact block type home, but still giving really good amenity, good livability, and great access to sunlight. You can see the 2 courtyards that are sort of cut into the middle of this home, and they give access northern light back into some of these other bedrooms that may not otherwise receive that. In the tropical model, the roof overhangs are larger so that it actually takes out more sunlight. And so that's what the tropical variation looks like. The roof is slightly different. The Banksia house is a 3-bedroom plus study house, 2 bathrooms and 1 living area, and is reflected in the design that Richard's going to show us that he's built. This house was the first house that we did as part of the stage 1 Design for Place process. And again, a series of principles would involve where we do have a north-facing block, we set back from along east-west block, we set back from the northern boundary so that we've got sunlight opportunity both to the house but also to our main open space. North-facing glass that changes dependent on the location, and the specification of that glass changes. But it gives you a good opportunity to get sunlight onto an internal slab so that you can have passive regulation of temperature, particularly in winter. You can take advantage of that heat store. There's consideration of natural cross-flow ventilation. So we've tried to build in some high-level windows that can be operable for night purging to get rid of hot air in summer. And there are also windows in other locations that allow for good breezes to go through the house. Eave overhangs and sun hoods, like all of the designs, are set up to try and moderate the amount of sunshine that we get in summer, but still allow that low angle winter sun in the appropriate climate zones. Material choice has been guided by considerations, again, of thermal performance and buildability. And the floor plan, again, you can access on the website. So very quickly, in terms of the energy rating, the process we went through was to set up an initial set of operations and specifications for things like the slab. If we had a floor slab, the type of insulation that we would have around the floors, the type of insulation and wall construction system that we would use, and insulation and thicknesses of roof and ceiling, and also specification of materials. And so then we started modelling those for the different houses, and we would look at the differences that would work well and successfully in the different climate zones, and those differences of specifications aligned with the design differences, which are about, for example, in the tropical house, having the living areas upstairs and the bedrooms downstairs, allowed us to frame each of those different designs within the 9 climate zones in a way that you can really start to understand what the appropriate specifications are for the different locations. So we went through a process of all of those and got some really fantastic results, and we got some very interesting ones and some that we questioned, and that was a great process to go through, and an excellent learning process for both myself and also for others involved in the project. So the modelling software basically establishes the type of function for the different rooms. This is just a screen capture of one of the projects. And it assigns, the really interesting thing about energy ratings is that it assigns assumed monthly cooling and heating expectations for certain types of mechanical conditioning. And so obviously the better that your house performs in a passive setting where you're not using mechanical heating and cooling, the less megajoules per square metre you actually consume for the houses. So that was a wonderful opportunity for us to run through a whole range of different designs and get some really considered understanding and knowledge about the differences of insulation specification, windows, eave overhangs, construction systems. It's great. So that went through, and then we ended up with some really good technical data that the guys in the department have gradually been uploading into the website and deciphering. There's a lot of information there. And so the packages that you can download now from the website have relevant data about those different specification types and a really wonderful sort of background documents. All right, so look, I think for me that probably wraps that up for the moment, and looking forward to some questions and answers later on. But again, we'll just reiterate that, you know, as an architect, it's been such a wonderful opportunity to have clients, in this instance, Felicity and her team, clients that have really passionate sort of goals about this type of work. So been a wonderful opportunity, and hopefully there's a stage 3 sometime down the line. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ben. Gosh, I found that fascinating. It's really great to have a bit of a walk through the different designs. And I can imagine that it must have been a very interesting experience for you and your team to essentially design the same house or tweak the same house for all the different, for a range of different climates around Australia. It's not something as an architect that you often get to do, I guess.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it was an amazing thing to do that, and you know, my experience is slightly limited between Victoria, the East Coast, and a little bit of working in Queensland. But to also be involved now and think about stuff in Adelaide and Perth and Darwin and other places was wonderful. So yeah, really interesting.
Great, thanks for the overview. So now I'm going to turn to Richard, who's been there, done that. Richard's going to share some of his experiences of building a Design for Place home. His Harmony house near Inverloch in Gippsland in Victoria was based on the Banksia, the earliest of the designs, a 3-bedroom plus study Design for Place design. So Richard, tell us how you discovered the Design for Place plans.
Well, I think originally it was a friend of mine that actually came across an article about them just on their release. So that's how we first heard about them. But it was more, I think, realising how good they were. That was the trick of it. It's easy to come across something, but to actually to realise, you know, how good they were. And I was lucky in that respect in that in our, I guess, search for a passive solar build pathway, we had been, I'd been doing lots and lots of research. So I'd read a couple of textbooks actually on passive solar design. So when I saw the plans, I could really have a good look at them and have a look at, you know, window ratio compared to internal thermal mass, things like that. And gradually came to realise how good they were. And the layout too was perfect for us. It really suited our family. So yeah, although it was a sort of lucky break initially to come across them, it was really having a good look at them that made us realise that's what we wanted to do.
And what inspired you to actually go ahead and build a Design for Place home plan or plan home based on a design for place plan?
Well, I guess it was that realization of how much it included. Like, it really did include everything that we'd been looking for. So all the internal thermal mass components, the cross-flow ventilation, and just the general livability of it. And it was funny listening to Ben talk before. Everything that he was talking about in theory, you know, is really what we felt looking at it. And part of that was actually realising that we'd found a cost-effective way too of getting our passive solar build done. So what Ben was talking about with regards to being able to use those plans to talk to builders and trades is exactly what happened. You know, I could use that window schedule. I think I got quotes on 13 different window scenarios, you know, using that particular schedule, so that you could really compare, you know, apples with apples by giving each of those different companies that schedule and saying, okay, what does this cost with your windows? And I also listed down all the performance attributes of those particular windows to really make the choices there. And then same with having a floor plan and talking to different builders about their methods. Oh, and that's the other thing, as Ben said, you know, it's a relatively simple design on the surface, even though it includes so much sophistication with the passive solar element. But all the builders were very familiar with all the different building techniques and everything involved. So again, I guess to answer your question, it was that combination of performance in the design, but also affordability in the build that really had us very excited.
Yes, I remember you made that point when I talked to you for the article that we wrote for Sanctuary. That was the sort of key takeaway for me from talking to you, that was the combination you were looking for, and you found it with the Design for Place plans.
We've been working for 6 to 12 months before that, so it was a relief finding this. Really.
Okay. So what were the modifications you made to the original plans, Richard?
Okay, so first of all, we did a simple east-west mirror flip because we have our driveway on the east of our property, not the west. So that was a fairly simple thing to do, and of course didn't affect the thermal attributes, the performance attributes of the design, because we're still facing north, obviously.
Yep.
And that's what really informed us whenever we were thinking about, you know, little personal tweaks. It was always uppermost in our mind that we wouldn't degrade the performance at all. It would either leave that the same or increase the performance. And so that's where our other modifications came into it. So, for example, I think for our climate zone, the plans as given, as specified to get the 7-star rating, didn't actually even require double glazed windows. You know, that's how good the design itself is. But we double glazed windows. We decided to do an insulated slab, increase the insulation in the roof. So we got to 8.2 stars in the end. So they were all, you know, sort of personal choices. And we might get into that later, but that was all designed to make sure that we could afford an off-grid energy system. So yeah, that mirror flip, increasing the thermal performance, choosing rammed earth for our masonry walls instead of brick, because rammed earth has a better thermal capacity. And we didn't need to park in that floor space itself. So we converted the garage space into a singing studio and built carports on the south side outside the house because we were happy with that. And I think the only other thing we did was we like toilets in cubicles, not floating around a bathroom. So a bit of a personal choice there.
Okay. And how satisfied are you with the end result?
I know it sounds like a cliche, but we honestly couldn't be happier. It's really met and exceeded all our expectations. It's a beautiful place to live in. That's another thing I picked up on Ben mentioning, is that connection to the outdoors. And that's what it feels like in our main living space. You know, we have this beautiful interior, but it's so connected to the outdoors as well. And so there's a shot there. And the whole thing just feels so nurturing. You know, we're warm in winter, we're cool in summer. It's beautiful. It makes me smile every day. We just love it. We really do.
I'd say better than that, hey? Thinking back to the build, are there any particular decisions you'd change if you're doing it again, Richard?
You know, I'm relieved to say that there aren't, because there's so many decisions that you come up against in a build. And I did worry about a lot of them.
Yeah.
Because once they're in, and you know, I feel like we were doing this, you know, not just for myself and my wife, but our kids as well, and anyone after us. You know, I sort of, in a way, built this place with the choice of materials and things, you know, to last 100 years, sort of thing. So yeah, I did stress a bit about the choices, but I'm glad to say that we seem to have got everything right. Our off-grid energy system, for example, we have rarely been below 80% in our battery capacity. Our worm farm septic system is happily, you know, processing all our black and grey water waste. Our rainwater collection, we've never been below 2/3 capacity there. And Tankulator, Anna from Renew, was a great resource there. Recommend that to anyone.
Great to hear.
Oh, it was awesome. So, and again, having all this in front of you beforehand, it means that we could fit those tanks exactly where they needed to be, knowing exactly how big they needed to be and how much, you know, water we were going to be using and how, and everything. So yes, we seem to have got everything right, and there isn't a single thing I've changed.
Are there any particular energy efficient features that you'd like to showcase for the viewers, just to wind up, Richard?
To wind up, well, the core, speaking about energy efficiency, the core is how energy efficient the house itself is. We rarely have to use any mechanical heating, and the energy efficiency of the house is what allowed us to have an off-grid PV energy system that we could afford. And having that, because an off-grid system is sized around that, you know, 3 or 4 weeks in the middle of winter, all the rest of the time we have excess energy. So it allows us to make all these other sustainable choices. So we have Husqvarna auto mower mowing our lawns every day. And it takes our energy system 2 minutes to generate enough energy to power that auto mower for about 10 hours. So, and same with our worm farm system, to do all of our waste processing. The pumping required in that is just a drop in the ocean of the energy that we produce from the sun. But being able to afford that energy system was a direct result of the amazing performance of the house itself. So I guess that's a combined answer. It's the house itself, and we love our auto mower and everything we've been able to add because of it.
Great. Thanks very much, Richard, for sharing some of your experiences, and I hope everyone's been enjoying the images of Richard's house that have been showing in the background while he's been talking. That's the end of our presentations for tonight. So we're going to move now to the Q&A section of the session. Ben and Felicity, if you'd like to join us again, that'd be great. And we'll get stuck into some of the questions. Thank you very much for the question. People have already been posting questions. Just a quick reminder, if you'd like to ask a question, if you'd like to put forward a question, we probably won't be able to get to all of them, but we'll do our best to get to as many as we can. If you'd like to put a question forward, please use the Q&A feature in your toolbar at the bottom of your Zoom window. So let's start with a question about probably on a few people's minds after last summer and coming into the next bushfire season only too soon. Are there any consideration in the designs for bushfire zones, designs and materials for bushfire zones, and their applicability to rural settings?
So Anna, look, I'll jump in very quickly initially, and it's a great question, and one that that's certainly been framed after the situation that we had at the start of this year and the end of last year in many parts of Australia. It wasn't a specific requirement of the stages that we've just gone through. That might be different in stage 3, or there might be some capacity for us to provide some more information about that and it's how it might be applicable to the designs in the near future. What I would say is that if you were building in a bushfire prone area, talk to some bushfire consultants about the types of window systems, the types of shutters that you might need, where rainwater tanks, etc., might need to have additional capacity for firefighting opportunities. So in a similar way to the engineering requirements and other things will be nuanced and specific to different locations, so will the bushfire requirements. So my advice would be that that it would certainly be worthwhile talking to a bushfire consultant with a set of drawings, and then just discussing the design and specification attributes that might be able to be added to the design to give it some capacity to do that. Many of the materials that are specified are non-combustible, so many of them are actually non-combustible. So some of those are already scheduled, but certainly if you're in a bushfire-prone location, good advice from a specialist would be, one of the first things that you would look to do.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. I think Ben has said it very clearly, but just to let everyone know as well, a few of you may be aware that we are planning an update to the Your Home resource later this year, and we do intend on including some information around building in bushfire-prone areas, so people may find that useful once that's released.
Just in reference to that, Felicity, I was going to ask this at the end, but perhaps now's a good moment. We've had a question about, someone says they looked up the yourhome.gov.au site recently, and it said that the book was not available till later in the year. I assume that means that that's a reference to the update.
Yeah.
And will the book include the Design for Place plans?
No, it won't. So the Design for Place plans only available on the Your Home website, and they'll continue to be so. We're intending to release the edition 6 shortly, hopefully before the end of this year, but you can find out more about that on the Your Home website. There's a link on the bottom right hand corner of the page which will take you through to a page that explains what we're intending to include in the upcoming release, and also how you can find out more about when it's coming, where you can buy the book and so on. So the edition 6 will include a new printed version, so the book, as well as an update to the website. And what some people may not realise is that apart from the Design for Place plans and some of the case studies, the information that's on the website is exactly the same as what's in the book. So if you are, we've had a few questions of people asking us if they can still buy edition 5 versions of the book, but all of that information is still available online.
Yep, great, thank you for that clarification. Somebody has submitted a question that says, I see so many new houses with little regard for passive solar principles. How do we get the message across to home buyers, builders, architects and planners? It's the $1 million question.
I think it's a great question, but I think it's about providing information in really easy format. So like what we've done with Design for Place, the resource is targeted at consumers, homeowners, but it's also available for the construction industry to pick up if they choose to. The plans provided free, online, and anyone can modify them or adapt them. But I think it's also about getting the word out. So with this release and part of the webinar today, obviously we're doing promotional activities, and we'll be doing that as well with the upcoming release of edition 6 of Your Home. And I think there's a lot of work going on across governments in different states as well about trying to get information about energy efficiency out there and into the public domain as best they can. But I think it's also, as I said, providing the content in novel ways and making it...
So Felicity, sorry to interrupt, you've just suddenly gone really soft. It's quite hard to hear you.
I'll move my volume closer. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's a bit better.
Yeah, so
thanks.
Just providing the content in novel ways and getting it out there as much as possible. And as I was saying, that we're going to be promoting Design for Place in the next few months a lot more, and also the upcoming edition of Your Home. But the questioner will be pleased to know that we have seen quite an increase in visits to the Your Home website. and not just the Design for Place content, but we have seen a real uptick in people looking for information about building sustainably and energy efficiently.
Yeah. And so look, Anna, if I can just quickly jump in there as well and
Please do.
yeah, just add to Felicity's commentary. So the designs themselves work hard to try and integrate and reflect what I guess we would call fairly traditional or standard construction practices within the residential industry at the moment. But they're set up in a way that people can modify them. And I mean, one of the really wonderful things about seeing some great images of Richard's house today is that there is some differences that he's introduced in his house, but still retain the bones of solar passive performance. So the fact that we're trying to deal with or show and utilise fairly standard construction techniques, but done in good ways, but also provide drawings that tend to give you an opportunity to have a conversation with builders and other practitioners more easily than turning up with, say, a 10-page text document that has a whole bunch of sustainability principles that in reality they may struggle to engage with, where a drawing you can very quickly say, look, we really like the idea that the kitchen and living spaces are facing north, and we like the fact that the service zones are down there on the south, and having those conversations and pointing to a piece of paper or a drawing hopefully means that people within the industry are comfortable in that, using that sort of language, I guess a visual language. So that's one of the other ways that we're hopeful that that it's picked up and it's demonstrated that solar passive doesn't have to be a particularly difficult thing to achieve. It just needs to have some consideration at the front end in the layout and the planning.
Thanks very much, Felicity and Ben. So we're just wrangling Felicity's microphone issue there. Hopefully everybody can still hear. I have a question from Carly about the design. Do the designs include specifications and documentation for joinery and internal fittings and fixtures, Ben?
No, not at this stage, Anna. I mean, as an architect, I'd love to be able to go to that level of detail. But yep. Look, one of the things that I didn't talk about in a lot of detail in the presentation that I did earlier because of time is building cost and expectation about the cost of these projects as well. And one of the reasons that I didn't go into too much detail is that there are large cost differences across different parts of Australia for largely the same product, and that's got to do with labour rates and delivery and haulage and a whole bunch of other things. And one of the other things that can influence cost is selections and schedules of fittings and finishes and stuff as well. And I think the intention of the project and the process that we've gone through is to give people the flexibility to turn these houses into their own, which Richard's done a really beautiful job of doing. When you see some of the detailed photographs of the kitchen and some of the other joinery elements, what we would like to do is give you the opportunity to turn your house into something that suits you, both in terms of the types of finishes and fixtures that you would like. We don't want to have to specify necessary colours, etc. But also allow that part of the process to have an influence in cost, because joinery, fittings and fixtures, those kind of things can influence cost. And we would like to give you the opportunity and the flexibility to influence the final cost of your project by working with builders and others to identify the types of finishes that you might be able to afford. So the types of finishes that you like, but also the types of finishes that suit your budget. So that's a long answer to say that at this stage, what we've specified are the external materials and the construction types and the insulation specifications and the windows. And we have suggested colours, because colour can make a difference to thermal performance in different parts of Australia. It can be minor, but we have been cognizant of that, and so we've attempted to demonstrate what those differences might be. But look, joinery is something we'd encourage you to take to an architect to develop in your own project, or a draftsperson or an interior designer, or work directly with a joiner.
Yeah, fair enough. Next question's for Richard. Sarah would like to know how long your build took.
A year. It was going to be 9 months, but there was a hold up, unfortunately, over winter with one particular aspect. So about a year from beginning to end. A very long year.
Long but smooth, or convoluted?
I mentioned this apparent fact often. Apparently, doing a build is one of the 5 most difficult things in life, up there with births, deaths, and marriages. And it was certainly challenging. I think just because of the amount of money involved, and also, you know, I like to get things right. And as I said, there was some stress about some of the decisions, you know, because once they're in for good. So it was challenging, but, you know, looking back on it, it was relatively smooth. There was one particular hold-up which caused some flow-on effects. But other than that, you know, it all went well. I'm glad we got it done before this pandemic. and yeah, I wouldn't want to do it again in a hurry, but we're so pleased with the result. It was definitely worth it.
Yeah, indeed. Quite a few people have been asking about cost, and I know that the answer has probably something to do with the length of a piece of string, Ben, but just wondering if you can shed any light on the general range of cost per square metre for the Design for Place homes that you were aiming for, if that's even a sensible question.
Yeah, so Anna, it is a sensible question, and it's a very, very difficult one for us to answer. But we look, broadly speaking, we set some objectives in the early documentation that Felicity and her team and myself established that set a range in, let's say, the low $2,000 a square metre for this part. We're working in Canberra, so we were talking about Canberra. That price in Canberra equates usually to a lower figure in New South Wales for various reasons, and potentially lower again in Queensland. So there's an opportunity that we were looking at, let's say between $1,700 or $1,800 a square metre up to the mid 2000s was the sort of broad objective that we set. As I mentioned earlier, it's very difficult to attain or anticipate an exact cost for these designs. You need to talk to a builder about it, because builders will provide different quotes for the same product, dependent on their business models and a whole range of other things. And so, look, my advice is, with these designs, take them to a number of builders in your area that you think you might like to work with. And start to have some conversations about costs. If the cost estimates are looking as though they are more expensive than you would like, talk to the builders about the reasons that might be the case. So there might be certain things that are driving price. That might be the type of windows you've decided to get quotes on. It might be about the type of external material. It could be the brick. You know, bricks can vary from $1 a brick to $6 a brick, and so there are huge ranges in terms of prices. And so I think that part of this project is, again, when you start to make amendments and revisions to the design to make it your own, one of the conversations during that process is also identifying the areas of the project that you might need to do your own little bit of homework on, for various reasons, to guide towards a building cost that suits you. So it's a very difficult thing to give particular clarity to. When we set the agenda in terms of cost, we broadly spoke about those square metre rates, and I guess we decided that the best way to be sensible and to try and make these things as usable as possible to as many people as possible was to stick with fairly generic standard residential construction types. So there's brick veneer construction, there's lightweight weatherboard and compressed FC construction in some of the projects. We've got roof trusses in most of them, fairly standard eaves and fascias. So we've tried to stay within the ballpark of what most builders we felt would recognise as common design practices. And accordingly, they would, hopefully be able to work with a user to develop a comfortable budget range.
Yes, I think it sounds like the standard construction techniques and relatively familiar material selection is pretty key to that, you know, keeping it cost effective.
Yep.
Yep. Another question for you, Richard. Daryl asks, says that the Harmony House lounge and dining room looks very generous in the photos with the grand piano in the background there. And is it the same size as the design drawings, or did you enlarge it?
No, the living area is the same size. Yep, as per the drawings. But yes, it's very generous and very comfortable to live in.
I think behind the scenes might be flicking through to the floor plan again.
There's some of it.
Okay, and Felicity, one of our attendees would like to have a sneak preview of what we can look forward to in the new 6th edition of Your Home. You need to take your mute off.
Hope you can hear me now.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, go ahead.
That's good. Yes, I would encourage you to jump on the Your Home website and click on that link in the bottom right-hand corner, and it'll tell you what has changed in the upcoming edition. And also, if you check back in there, you'll get an update on when we're expecting to release it. But in summary, as I said before, we're looking to include some content on bushfire, building in bushfire zones, or bushfire prone areas. And there's a new chapter on passive house as well. And there's about 50% of the resource has had a technical update, but the whole thing has also been scientifically edited. So there's new content at the beginning of each chapter which summarizes what you can find below. And I think it's just going to be a succinct and easy to access resource, and continue to be really valuable to everyone that needs to use it.
Excellent. I look forward to checking it out. Speaking of passive house, with respect to the Design for Place plans in particular, Andrew asks how amenable are the Design for Place plans for adaptation to a passive house build, for example, fitting HRV, that's heat recovery ventilation ducts into the conditioned space? And is there any intention to provide sort of notes or accompanying suggestions that would help people turn these, or build a passive house, with capital P, capital H, passive house, from these designs?
I'm happy to quickly answer. I'm not sure what the long-term objectives of Felicity and the team might be at this stage, but look, in terms of passive house, that would be another wonderful thing, that you could take this set of drawings to either a certified passive house designer or an architect that's familiar with passive house, or builder that's familiar with passive house technologies. There is capacity to build them into these projects, but you would need to make some fairly conscious and detailed decisions about the framing types, insulation, multiple wall wraps, and a number of other things, and the capacity for reticulating services on the sort of interior side of insulation. So there's a number of detailed things that you could look to do. But we do have space in roofs in most instances in these designs. So there's a good opportunity for some equipment to be stored. So I think that, you know, like many things with the process that we've gone through, there's a great start. There's a really wonderful start or package of information that you could take to people that understand the technology and how to integrate it into a house design. And you'd be well ahead of the game if you took these to a passive house certified professional or a builder and architect that understands the technology, and you know, you can talk about where things can go within the context of a design already, which would be really, really great.
Thanks, Ben. We're getting also quite a few questions about a variety of different people with blocks that have slightly different requirements. You know, Richard was lucky, or chose well, that his block was perfectly suited to a design that basically straight out of the box, and plenty of people are not in that position. And we're getting questions about how applicable are they for things like sloping blocks, north to the rear, that kind of thing. Do you have any advice for people on, I mean, obviously you can't design a plan to suit absolutely every situation, and I'm sure you've done the best you can to cover as many as possible, but if your block is not suitable for a concrete slab, for example, what can you still use a design for place plan?
Yep. Another really good question, Anna. That's very difficult to answer in a moderately short space of time. But
don't want to make it too easy for you.
We were very conscious of the type of block that we thought we should represent in these projects. You'll see that they're largely flat, and we thought, well, we might as well start with a flat block because there's an opportunity to show that irrespective of slope, what you're trying to do is face living areas to the north in many climate zones, and you're trying to provide shade. Those things can be provided irrespective of the slope of the block. Yes, things get a bit more complicated if there needs to be some stepping in floors and slabs or light framing, etc., and roofs. But again, there's an opportunity for you to use these drawings and the background principles. So even some of the principal little images that I had earlier tonight that showed basically you're trying to face north and you're trying to reduce the amount of low angle sun on the eastern and western ends. Those things are applicable really irrespective of block size and topography. So you can use those principles to tweak the designs where you need to. I know that there's a couple of questions there that talk about how do you do the larger design, the tilapia design, if you've got north to the street, and that's a very good question, and it's not an easy one to answer with the design that we've got. But one of the things you could do is take that set of drawings to a builder or a draftsperson or an architect and say, you know, we really like the general arrangement of living spaces and bedrooms and the way that they connect and the way that they connect out to the garden, etc. We like those, but our orientation is different. And so we want to work out some ways that we can actually replan this house so that it suits the block that we've got. And so as part of that conversation, you might even take the little courtyard house that we've got that has the two little courtyards to allow you to get a little bit more northern light to the back of the block and say, this might be one way that we can achieve getting some extra light into this house, for example. So there are a number of ways that you might actually find you take even 2 or 3 of the packages to a builder or a draftsperson or an architect that have different influences. One might be about the layout and the number of rooms. Another one might be about the shape or size of the open space. And another one might be about how you get north light into the back of a block where north is to the street. And so all of those things put together are hopefully going to give you the ability to have a conversation with somebody about sensible practices.
If I can just add, Anna, as well.
Go ahead.
I would encourage people to really delve into the depth of information that is available on your home. The current edition is about 570 pages of content. It's been compiled by architects, experts in industry, builders, material experts. It's a wealth of knowledge. So if people have specific questions, you know, guidance on insulation requirements in their particular climate zone, or how best to orient a home, or if they've got a complex block, what materials they might like to consider, or even other things around sustainability in terms of how they deal with wastewater and how to landscape sustainably as well. That's all there. So I'd encourage people to jump online and have a look.
And Anna, could I actually confirm that? I was actually going to say something very similar, Felicity, because we're talking a lot about the design for place design. But yeah, the amount of information on your home is just phenomenal, and it's such good quality. And I think I mentioned that in our sort of research before we discovered Design for Place, I'd read textbooks on passive solar design. And when I got to your home, I thought that it would be sort of, dumbed down information for a wide audience, but it isn't. It's really good quality information, really readable. And as Felicity's just said, you can find information on so many different things, from rainwater collection to, to insulation, just everything. And yeah, I would so recommend it for anyone thinking along these lines. It's an amazing resource.
I absolutely agree, and I also encourage, self-servingly, encourage everybody to also subscribe to Renew and Sanctuary magazines if you're interested in this subject area, because this is our bread and butter. We love to provide up-to-date information and inspiration for...
That's very true as well. I read every issue of both those magazines back to front, taking notes for 4 years.
Great to hear, Richard.
There's a resource there too, and especially Tankulator is with me. That was awesome.
And just to reiterate, we're published by a not-for-profit, and we're independent information, non-commercial. So that's all we've got time for tonight, I'm afraid, everybody. I'd really like to thank our panellists, Felicity, Ben and Richard. Thank you for sharing your time and expertise. Thank you also to all our attendees for tuning in to this session as part of the Sustainable House Day Extension Series. You can find out more about Sustainable House Day by visiting sustainablehouseday.com if you haven't already. And if you enjoyed this discussion, be sure to check out the over 170 homes featured in Sustainable House Day 2020. You'll find virtual tour videos for many open homes this year on the website, as well as details of all the home's sustainable features. You can also comment on our online house profiles to ask questions of homeowners and designers directly. Sustainable House Day is organised by Renew, a not-for-profit that inspires, enables and advocates for sustainable living in Australia. Renew publishes 2 magazines, as I just mentioned, on sustainable technology in homes, Renew magazine and of course Sanctuary magazine. You can find out more about the organisation and become a member if you're moved to at renew.org.au. We have one more extension session coming up tomorrow night for Sustainable House Day this year. Bookings can be made through the Sustainable House Day website. Also, this session and all the other sessions for Sustainable House Day this year have been recorded and will be made available in due course on the Renew YouTube site. So if you missed anything, or if it all went too quickly and you couldn't take enough notes, you can go back and rewatch down the track. Before closing, we would like to again acknowledge the Department of Industry, Science, Energy and Resources and our other sponsors of Sustainable House Day, as well as the Renew staff, volunteers and interns who've made Sustainable House Day possible in this brand new online format this year. Thank you very much. And thank you all again, Richard, Felicity and Ben. Thank you all in the background for your technical assistance, and thank you to our attendees for joining us this evening. It's been good fun, and I'm sorry we didn't get to everyone's questions, but yes, I really appreciate everybody's time. I'm going to wind it up now and say goodbye, and you can feel free to leave the webinar.